Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Jacqui Hendriks and it is my pleasure to give you this quick presentation on the work we have been doing at Curtin University over the last decade or so to really build the capacity of in-service educators and schools to deliver high quality and evidence-based relationships and sexuality education for young people. This first slide is a bit of a background into me. So I have qualifications in health promotion and sexology. I've been working at Curtin for 10 years and I have both lecturing and research roles here. I'm really passionate about optimising the sexual health and well-being of young people. So in particular, I love working with young people, but all of the different support structures who can help us to achieve this. So ensuring that parents and other family members feel really empowered and supported to look after their young people, but also our professional workspaces as well, so particularly the health and education sectors. The program I'm going to speak to you about today is the RSE Project, which stands for Relationships and Sexuality Education. This is a really common phrase used in Australia when we're talking about teaching young people about the personal and social skills that they need in order to navigate sex, sexuality and their sexual health. Our remit is basically to provide a whole range of professional learning opportunities to people who are currently working in schools. And we also do a few things to support people at the initial teacher training stage as well. But this presentation is more about what we do to look after people who are already working in a school context. So as you can see, there's a whole range of activities that we offer in a calendar year, and some of these I'll go into greater detail in some upcoming slides. But I will just let you know about the symposium because it's one of our more popular events, and we do run this one-day symposium every 2 years. The morning session is always filled with some great keynote presentations, people sharing the latest resources, some new research that might have come out. Then the middle of the day involves a whole range of different educators, teachers or other school staff who come along and tell us about their different schools and let us know some of these innovative strategies or techniques that they've been trying out in order to deliver relationships and sexuality content in a really contemporary and engaging way. And that's always a session that's really valued by our delegates. The afternoon session involves a whole range of workshop options, so individuals can pick and choose topics that are of relevance to them and their school context. We also have a very vibrant exhibition space at this day, so all of the different local agencies who are geared up to support people working in schools will come and present different displays and speak about the different levels of support that they can provide our various schools. So it's a really fabulous event, and we live stream it as well. So for people who can't attend in person, there are online options as well. Because our funding comes from our state government, we are required to mention at all of our events the different supports that our government does provide for people working in this space. So 2 websites that are commonly mentioned are the Growing and Developing Healthy Relationships website, or GDHR, and this is basically a one-stop shop for anyone who works in a school in Australia. It's got lots of information about what RSE is, different lesson plans, and all of the background evidence and teaching notes that an educator might need. And the other website, Get the Facts, is geared up for young people to access themselves. So it's predominantly for those who are aged between 12 to 25 years of age. And it's just a very reputable website and source of information around all things related to sex, sexuality, and sexual health. Give you a little bit of background on where we're located, because the RSE Project and Curtin University is obviously based in Australia, but that's a very broad and diverse continent, and we're located over on the far west coast, predominantly down in the capital city of Perth. And if you know anything about Australia or about Perth, we're very big. So you can sit in a car and it will take you several days to get from one side of the country to the other. And if you do live in the west coast like we do, it will take you several days to get from the bottom of the state up to the top. So we do have this issue with having to connect with schools across a very large distance. And if you look at the area of Western Australia specifically, our population is not evenly distributed across the state. So most individuals do live down near the capital city of Perth or in that southwest region that's coloured in purple there. We do find a lot of people will stick to the coastline of Western Australia, but most of our inland area is incredibly sparse. So for all of the schools out in these more remote areas, it can become really problematic for them to access professional learning opportunities and ongoing support. So that's just an additional issue that we have to consider when it comes to the types of training that we can offer. I'll talk about our workshop because that's probably our flagship offering. So this is a 2-day event and we run that at least twice every year. So once it will run in the metropolitan area of Perth, and then at a second time we will travel to one of the regional centres and deliver it to people in person. So the 2-day event is geared up to support anyone working in either a primary or a secondary school space, and we do also get a lot of educators who work in education support centres or with a high numbers of students who've got learning difficulties or other special educational needs. We are able to cover any expenses that a school might incur from having to pull their teacher out of the classroom for the 2 days and to send them along to our event. So within Australia, if a classroom teacher is going off to do some professional learning, a relief teacher will often be appointed, and that can cost a school at least 500 Australian dollars a day. And so we are actually able to subsidise those expenses, which does make it much easier for people to participate in our workshop. And then there is no additional cost for their participation. We cover the venue, the catering and everything. This is just a quick rundown of the different topics that we traditionally cover across the 2 days. So there is some pre-reading to work through. We really want people to come to the event with a pretty solid understanding of what relationships and sexuality education is. We want them to have done some self-reflection on their own upbringing and education in this space, how comfortable they feel around addressing certain topics, and if there's any pain points or issues that might be particularly triggering or problematic for them to facilitate. We want to give them some nice skills in how to make sure their classrooms are safe spaces for both them as the facilitator, but for all of their students. And we really want to support an affirming and a diverse and an inclusive space as well. And we talk a lot about a whole of school approach because we know the evidence is very clear that this is the most effective method. You will also see on the right hand side there's a whole range of different topics that are covered over the 2 days, and all the way through we are demonstrating some really practical teaching and learning strategies. So we're showcasing lots of different resources, showing lots of different techniques such as values continuums, brainstorming, empathy walks, showing some fabulous videos, lots of think, pair, share, interactive small group work. And these are just some photos from some of our recent workshops, just to show you how interactive a lot of our activities can be, and that we have a pretty significant display of various resources. And we try very hard to curate a whole bunch of resources that are easily accessible, low cost, or free for schools. We also offer some tertiary instruction in relationships and sexuality. So at an undergraduate level, we don't have any complete degrees, but we do find people doing education or health degrees will often have the opportunity to select 1 or 2 optional courses or units. And so we do have some courses here at Curtin which cover attitudes and values towards relationships and sexual health, and some practical strategies about delivering education. And then we have a pretty comprehensive postgraduate program as well. So everything from a graduate certificate through to a master's, plus we also supervise a higher degree by research students. Just to let you know, our work is heavily informed by the World Health Organization's Health Promoting Schools framework. So when we are trying to provide technical assistance to individual school sites to make sure that they have a whole of school approach, this is the model that informs our work. So when it comes to providing technical assistance, this can look quite different depending on what school we're working with. We do try to provide a bit of a tailored approach to meet the individual needs of the schools. But typically it will mean that we go in with a bit of a conversation to start with. We do a climate assessment or an audit of what they're currently doing. We try to summarise all of the fabulous activities that they might currently be implementing, and then we make some suggestions about how to move forward, how to bring everything together, and to really make sure we've got a whole of school approach. Often the gap is that staff have not been well trained or supported, so we often will go in and provide some professional learning. We often review teaching and learning programs, so often that is looking at the health program, but it could also be looking at what's happening in English classes or the digital technology space. We're very happy to go in and demonstrate or model appropriate lessons for different age levels, but we are not geared up to support to deliver student presentations on a regular basis. We are much more invested in building the capacity of school teachers to do this in an ongoing way. And then we're also very happy to connect our schools with others in their local area who are doing great work. And if we can't meet their educational needs, then we're very happy to connect them with a whole range of external agencies who may be able to support them. We know that a whole of school approach is best practice, and typically in Australia what's available for a school is a bit of a how-to guide on a website. And unfortunately, because they are so time poor and they don't necessarily have the expertise for implementation, this can fall by the wayside. So we do find that because they can work with us as a technical partner, we can keep them accountable and just check in with them on a regular basis to make sure that they are slowly chipping away at all of the different strategies that they think are important for their school. Just to give you a quick little summary of two schools where we've had some success recently, so one secondary and one primary school. So in the secondary school, we've been working there for nearly 5 years now, and we started off by establishing a committee, a pretty large committee that had about 20 different individuals. It included teachers within the school across a broad range of learning areas. Parts of their pastoral care team and their executive team were also part of this committee. But we also had some strong buy-in from local community groups, the parent association and young people themselves. And we would meet regularly, anywhere between 4 to 8 times over a year. And we just talk about different things that might need to happen or to change within the school. We provided a whole range of professional learning for staff and really overhauled their programs to make them as contemporary and as engaging as possible. The school went about really starting to identify and recognise some key days of celebration that related to diversity, respectful relationships, sex, sexuality and sexual health. They started to engage lots of different external speakers and agencies, not people who would provide the education, but who would supplement some really good classroom instruction. They engaged a specific program that was more culturally safe for our Indigenous or First Nations students, and they went about involving the local police station through a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. So this was really connecting those students who were not so well connected to the school. They were allowed to hang out with the local police officers and do some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes once a week, which were very effective and really solidified the relationship between all of the students in the school and the local police services. The schools worked really hard to get feedback from the young people at all stages, so always checking in about their different ideas and making sure that they were meeting the needs of young people and answering their questions and just really preparing them for life outside of school. Everything this school did was regularly communicated to the broader community and to their family groups, so very open dialogue and sharing about the different activities in school newsletters or on their social media channels as well. And everything that this school attempted to do was quite well observed and evaluated. So these are just some pictures of some recent events at this school, and it has become quite a comprehensive and well embedded program over just a very short space of time. And in the primary school, it was a very similar approach. So we did start with a bit of an audit. Their committee was a little bit smaller, only 5 teachers predominantly, but they did represent all the different year levels from the earliest years of primary school all the way up. And again, we reviewed their programs and provided professional learning for staff, and we would check in with their committee on a pretty regular basis. This school went about really trying to support those students as they were transitioning through to secondary school. And they had some fabulous programs, particularly around puberty, but also involving parents in some parent discussions towards the end of primary school as well. And a very big focus in this school about gender and the way it was portrayed and represented, and really starting to challenge gender stereotypes and being quite gender transformative in their approach, and a very big focus on the skills that are necessary in order to have respectful relationships with other people. So just some final thoughts from me. Obviously, schools are very busy places and they are juggling multiple issues at any one time. So the concept of relationships and sexuality education is not always a priority, but that is definitely a view that is changing. A lot of schools are starting to recognise that if they can provide a really diverse program, if they can really strive to optimise the well-being of their students, that this will have academic outcomes as well. Unfortunately, because they're so time poor, we have to be very targeted in the types of training and support we provide them, and we need to make sure everything we do is really fit for purpose. So we like to provide a pretty comprehensive calendar of events and keep our different offerings pretty stable from year to year. So if a school or a teacher can't access something this year, they should feel comfortable that it will be available again for them to tap into in 12 months' time. And we do record as much as possible, so that if they can't access things live, that they will be able to access them afterwards. We like to always make sure our training provides some really practical examples so people can take some of their learning straight back into the classroom and to start applying it. And we really love it when our educators can provide or do presentations to their peers. So it's one thing for a group of experts or researchers to tell teachers what they should be doing. Teachers and educators really value hearing from their peers and seeing those best practice examples from other schools who are pretty similar to themselves. We try to keep all of our training within school hours, and anything we do to after hours is often really quick and is recorded. We try to cover expenses as much as possible, so because of that funding that we've received, we can cover teaching relief and subsidise anyone attending any of our events. And we always try to spoil our educators with some great food, because often they feel a little bit neglected in the training space. So lots of delicious food is always well received. And then we know that whole of school approach is a really effective mechanism. So we're on hand to provide some technical assistance and to connect schools with like-minded groups who can support them. We are not prescriptive in what we tell schools to do in this space. We very much let them lead the charge and to identify strategies that they think will be most relevant for their young people and for their school context. And finally, if you have any questions or you would like to reach out and connect with us, we'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.